It was said that there was this smooth playing guitarist, a highly talented musician who went down to the Crossroads and made a deal with the devil. That man's name is Robert Johnson. And I'm going to tell you currently how that story, while being a pretty metal story, is also pretty problematic. And I'm also going to tell you that it also aligns a lot with how the alt Christian right treat Beyonce. And I try not to focus too much on the political end of things, but in fact, everything that we consume media-wise, everything has a political or social bias. There's no escaping it. If you look at Star Wars, I know that it doesn't seem like it, but it is very anti-authoritarian, saying that a corrupt government led by the emperor, just one person, a very fascist type, they even have the stormtroopers that are directly named after troopers from World War II, the German troopers of World War II, that I believe they had a German name that translated into stormtrooper. But let's go back to that story. That's a pretty cool concept. Your protagonist, he's down on his luck, and he really, wants to be the greatest at something. And in this story, it's music. He wants to be a guitarist. He wants to be a jazz musician. He wants to be the best, right? So he makes a deal with the devil at the crossroads. The crossroads is a very symbolic image of the right way and the wrong way. The moral path and the corrupt path. It was not a story that was subtle, okay? But I feel what is subtle about that story is how it has a thinly veiled layer of racism that I didn't even see until I heard people express the problematic issues of this story. And you're all like, Justin, how can that be problematic? We've heard different stories like the devil went down to Georgia, but that was a Georgia boy who fought the devil with his skill. He already had the skill, and the devil tried to defeat him. Charlie Daniels, most likely seen a little bit of himself in the protagonist of that character, right? And I love that. And I don't like country music, but I like that song. But it's hard for me to say that. Now, I don't want to dwell too much on this, but because it is, the time of Halloween, so the perfect time for devils and ghouls and all this stuff. But I gotta say, this reminds me of a very real life devil, a very real life ghoul, and that is equating others other than white to demons and people susceptible to the devil's will, right? You've seen this a lot with how they would even go into Bibles and edit whole chapters of the Bible to justify the industry in the consumption of slavery, because people at one point were a product. And in fact, that is, without question, why the Civil War even was fought. I feel like I have to say that, because if I don't, someone in the comments will probably be like, well, actually, it was about states' rights. But states' rights to do what? But, so you have the Bible being edited to justify a very evil, very corrupt industry, which is slavery. And they did that so more people would join in to this narrative. I mean, the only way that you're going to truly get everyone to get on board with something bad that you're trying to do, and you know good and well they're not going to see that as justified. But if you see them as other, they will treat these groups as other. And that's what they have been doing for 400 plus years. And this story harkens to that, because what it was is early America could not believe that a black man at that time had the knowledge and the ability and the willpower to forsake every systematic hurdle just to be the best at what he wanted to do, which was jazz music. He created a whole branch of new music. And we have varieties of new music thanks to him. And we still want to say, oh, he sold his soul to the devil so he could be able to perform that music, instead of seeing that was a narrative that people told themselves at that time, because they were unwilling to believe a black person could do that. Fast forward to 2022, where we're sitting, everything is less scary. Well, it's scary in different ways, Like, we don't have the global feeling that we're all going to hell if we don't say our prayers and give half of our check to the church. We no longer have that. We have this almost second enlightenment. But with that drop in church approval and societal norm to just be everything comes from the church, we're starting to have these free thoughts and have these new dynamic conversations, but there is something that the church still can't get over. The fact that we did not just destroy the music that Robert Johnson created. And since then, any person of color that rose to the top of his industry, no matter what it is, and that's where I'm going to next. Anytime a person of color, especially if it's female, but male or female, if they go to the top of their industry, the church cannot see anything but to tear down their what they've made. And now we go we're going back to the crossroads. Why are we going back to this setting? We're in the age of, we're in the age of technology. We can research anything. We can teach ourselves anything. Why are we going back to the crossroads? Well, the problem is the church is at it again. And this time, it's not old Robert Johnson. It's Beyonce. Yes, that's right. Queen Bee. They're coming at her saying, she's evil. Actually, this has been going on for a while. The church has been doing this for a while. Back about, while I was still in the Navy, I would say about 2012, 2013, I watched this documentary, right? And this was a really well-developed documentary, and I was like, wow, this is so good. It was about how Beyonce got her talent. And I was thinking that this was some VH1 behind the music. We're going to go through her upbringing. And they touched a little bit on her upbringing. But they didn't go the direction that I thought they were. They went into a super dark path. They claimed that she made a bargain with a demon named Sasha. And they even had like a clip from one of her interviews saying that that's her stage persona. And then they were all like, oh, you see here in these demonology, there's this demon named Sasha. And it's like, that is a human name, right? Like, humans didn't get that from demons. Humans created demons. So then they created names. Those both were created by humans, right? And your view is your view. I'm not going to tell you how to live your life. But I will saying every time when there is a successful person of color, they make deals with a demon and all this, it really screams of like racism, And before I realized I was really drawn into this, and it made me question for a second, oh wow, like the documentary was so good, it made me question whether or not a celebrity is just like out here making blood pacts with demons. And it's like, I am not surprised where QAnon came from, because that was back in 2000, the teens, the pre-teens. And now we're dealing with this, and I thought that was just one and done, and I won't see that again. But I go on my friend's Facebook, and she seems like she's a pretty good fan of Beyonce, and she's just showing these pictures that I'm showing you here that depict Beyonce as one of the four horsemen. Like, what? Not that four horsemen. That would make sense because she slays, okay? Be fist bumping Arn Anderson, which I hope not, but none of them need to be fist bumping or really touching anybody because the smallpox, and you know what? You know what? Smallpox, COVID, you know what? And then you start believing that, oh, it's the end of days because COVID has just popped up and we just didn't know how to deal with it, even though that there were elements that the CDC told us how to deal with it. We were given options and solutions to deal with a virus. And it became a political issue. Your personal health became a political issue. So now you have this dwindling crowd of churchgoers. Very few of them are still going to church, and a lot of them's the older crowd. And they buy into this hook, line, and sinker. Anyone that goes to church, whether they look like me or they're, the same complexion of Queen Bee, they'll still buy into it because religion in America is a pact that you have to agree with at least a majority of the bullshit that you get told on social media, on the internet, and by the church. I'm going to save all the BS that I went through in my own church. And I know a lot of people will be like, well, that's what, you just didn't have the right church. It's not about having the right church. Even Beyonce in her music says that she is a church girl. She says nothing about being a demon and having these demon colleagues or buds or whatever. And that's why they always go with, well, I didn't say that. I'm just implying. Because it leaves you guilt-free. You can tell everyone, this person is a demon, trust me, without actually saying those words. And here's where, when we go to the Crossroads and we pretend like these experts in their field, they're skilled musicians, not devil worshipers, not devil dealers. They're people that are just skilled at what they do. Before any boomer or anyone else tells you otherwise, when they try to reduce a person's hard work in their craft, they delegitimize that person. And now I'm going to go into the final part. And obviously, it's the most dangerous part. They dehumanize them. And I know you're thinking, Justin, people can still be humans when they make deals with devils and let demons possess them, right? I would say yes. For me, I would believe that. But most of the church, especially the evangelical American church that we know of today, they will call their enemies demons and the devil to dehumanize them. Now, we've seen countless mass shootings, and a lot of these people will resort to dehumanizing people. In fact, from the history where we found the Robert Johnson Crossroad devil dealing stories, where we find those stories, there were cookbooks on how to eat people of color. There were the Germany, Nazis. They got inspired from our cruelty that we did to both people of color, both black and brown people that worked for free in America and also south of the border. They would wear their skin like it's a leather bag, like it's leather shoes. They would do defiling things to these people because they told themselves they are not human. And I previously mentioned the mass shootings where they dehumanize their victims. So, in closing here, because I wanna hear Crossroads stories without a dehumanizing element behind it, without it punching down at a certain group of people. I want to hear these stories where people, do some regretful dealings, but then eventually have a turnaround, because the reality of those stories that we grew up with is, well, we just take that talent that we see them with, and we take away their credit and say that the devil did it, and that we get to be the champions, even though we just dehumanize them, And I don't know. I think we should rewrite the story and stop making everyone who is super skilled and working hard at what they do to improve their craft and be the best at who they are. I think we should let them be the hero of the story. Robert Johnson is the hero of the story. And lover or hater, Beyonce is the hero of the story. They have more money than most of us. Well, Beyonce does currently. And I think that's why a lot of people, demonize her, because she's a woman. She's a woman of color, and she has more sway than most people do. But a great way to keep yourself from viewing people that are other than you, like demons and devil dealers and worshipers, is to start a conversation with them. It's 2022. We have social media. You can ask a person straight up. They might feel offended. And if they get offended, maybe that's a point that you should take and say, you know what, maybe this was never true to begin with. Because the only way we're going to be able to write a better story is to see the flaws of the authors of the previous and learn from them. Thank you for watching today. This was a pretty heavy one. I tried to keep it grounded to the story as much as possible, but it's also a pretty shallow story. You know, if you don't actually know his, you know, real story, because the real story is actually way cooler. Like, he's a really interesting person, and so is Beyonce. You know, like, I don't have a whole lot of money. I don't have Beyonce money, but she's probably and more likely done more for her community than I have done for a whole lot of communities. And I'm not saying that, well, you know, someone's done better than me, I'm just not going to do anything. No, I'm going to let that inspire me. And I think everybody else should let that inspire them. So if you want to hear more creepy stories that you thought were a good, you know, story, but then it wind up being pretty dark, or, you know, like, they won't all be like this. They won't all have a pretty downer tone, but I feel like I couldn't not talk about it. You know what I'm saying? But that's all the time that we have. Thank you so much for watching. Hit that like button so you can let other people see this story. Obviously, the subscribe will let you see more of what I do. And I'll see you later. Bye.